sitting down here. So you guys get ready. Share this link with somebody right now so they know that we're. Okay, we are live officially for today's Tuesday Talks, and I am going to ask you guys, as I usually do, let me know that you can hear me. I'm in a different location, kind of back in one of my original spots here. Kevin Smith says, sounds good, video's good. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kevin, for letting me know. I am excited about today's broadcast just because, boy, there's so much that I have to talk about. I just got back from really kind of a whirlwind trip from Boise to Salt Lake City to Seattle, Seattle to Portland, and then Portland back to Boise just 2 nights ago. So I'm back in town and hit the ground running. Had several appointments this morning. Hey, Sherry, good to see you. Glad to have you here. It's Tuesday Talks. I was just sitting there thinking, like, what is today? It's Tuesday Talks. So obviously it's Tuesday, but have a lot of things that I learned, and I'm not sure exactly how much of it would actually be helpful to everybody on today's broadcast. So I've been trying to think of how can I take some of the stuff that I learned here on this last trip and pass it on to you all in a way that actually makes sense and a way that actually helps and brings value to your business. I am aware of the fact that most of you, if you're here today and you're listening to me, there's a pretty good chance that you may not necessarily be out there like really fully running and operating your own real estate business yet. So it doesn't mean you're not involved, but you may not necessarily be like out there like trying to scale your business. And I talked a little bit about that last week as I've been reading the book, The Science of Scaling, Benjamin Hardy. I went over that last week. I'm not going to get back into that again this week, but just by way of quick show of hands, or maybe you guys just drop a 1 in the chat if you have heard of Benjamin Hardy, or maybe if you looked him up since last week. Just drop me a 1 in the chat if you guys are now interested in some of the things that Benjamin Hardy has to say, talking about the science of scaling. 10x is easier than 2x. And anybody already had heard of him, or maybe you looked into him since looking him up. Yeah, Kevin's got a 1 here from Kevin. You guys, I really do believe that there is value in learning from as broad a range of people as possible. So in other words, I heard somebody say this a long time ago. Sometimes you have to chew up the meat and spit out the bones, right? So by no means when I endorse, or when I endorse, whenever I recommend or I say something about a particular book or a particular author or even a particular real estate investor or business person, that should not be taken as just a carpet endorsement, just like we're just going to lay this out and endorse everything that they do. That shouldn't be their takeaway at all. Okay. But having said that, I think there was, a wise saying that I heard from somebody years ago. They said, every man is my teacher, right? And so meaning you can learn something from everybody. And I know for me, I have some people that I learned from maybe more than others. And Benjamin Hardy is just somebody that I've been enjoying reading his stuff lately. I've been enjoying watching his podcasts, seeing stuff that he posts on Instagram. And I personally am really, I've been benefited by reading his book. So if you guys got value out of that, make sure you let me know. Give me some feedback if you guys went and looked at some of his stuff, if there was anything in particular that stood out to you after last week's broadcast. If there's anything that really resonated, I'd love to hear back from you. Hey, Peggy, I see you on here. Peggy obviously is one of our number one fans. She's a friend of mine and someone who is always there ready to pick me up at the airport when I get to Portland, or cart me around if I don't have a vehicle. Peggy is awesome. If you guys don't know Peggy, then you should. Peggy, I'm curious if you could share in the chat, in the comments, what was your major takeaway? Let's see here. She's saying I'm not live on Instagram. Okay, well, let me try this. I think I am. It says I am. Well, Sherry, thank you. Sherry, double check that and let me know, because I think I am live on Instagram. At least it says I am right now. So if you see that it's not on there, then maybe let me know. Peggy says, John, I washed your blanket. Okay, so kind of a little fun story here. So on this last trip, it was planned, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't really think too much ahead about. And so I was in Salt Lake City on what would have been Friday night last week. So not this last Friday, but the week 2 weeks ago. And I had a full day meeting with a bunch of hedge fund managers, people, which, by the way, guys, I learned some things about hedge fund managers, private equity. They're not all bad people. I think I've had this perception for a long time that like Blackstone and some of these big, massive names that people recognize, like that's what represents all hedge fund managers. And what I learned is that kind of like people talk about real estate investors in sometimes a negative light, and it might be because of one or two bad experiences or bad apples. That doesn't mean that everybody that's in real estate is out to try to, scam old grannies, right? So I learned that I had a little bit of a predisposition about hedge fund, about private equity, and got in the room full of folks on, that Friday, and found out that I was actually, I was highly impressed by the caliber of folks that were in that room. High level of integrity, very pro-America, which I think is important because the backbone of the American economy is small business, and that includes most of you folks that are here today. So I was just really excited about that. But anyway, full day, jam packed, didn't answer my phone. It was just 40, 50 messages all piled up. Then went out to dinner that night with a couple of guys from Indiana, and then another guy from Denver. We were just having dinner and have these conversations and just asking all the questions I could possibly squeeze in. And everybody got done. Those guys went to their hotel, and I was like, okay, I have to fly out of Salt Lake in the morning, and I had other meetings scheduled for as soon as I hit the ground. And I realized that I hadn't booked a hotel yet. So I'm not going to tell you guys where I slept, but let's just say that about 4 a.m, the security guards came and bumped me out. I didn't book a hotel because I was like, I don't want to go drop $200 just to sleep for 5 hours. So I found a place to sleep. And if you ever travel with me, you will know this, that be prepared for adventure. Okay. So it was just, I thought, my wife said, why do you do that? I said, well, I just kind of want to see if I can, why not? Why not try it? So anyway, I did the same thing on Thursday night after being in Portland. I had our Thursday night meetup, our regular PDX REI group meetup. Sheck, you were there. Good to see you there, bro. Guys, if you don't know Sheck Jenkins, get to know him. He's in the Portland area, a handyman, He did a window well install. So, taking out someone's, the dirt around a basement window and actually putting in a sunken well so you can put an egress window in. He can do all that kind of stuff. So if you guys are looking at properties, you're looking to do value add flips, rentals, look up Sheck Jenkins. He'll help you out. But after everybody left the PDX REI group meetup, I was like, well, I did it before. Why not do it again? So I actually ended up staying incognito there at the meetup space. And I probably shouldn't tell you guys that. But anyway, that was an experience. And Peggy, she was worried about me. So she left me a blanket. It was in her car. And I was very, very glad to have it. But also discovered the next morning that one of Peggy's dogs had also been really loving that blanket. So I had a black sweatshirt on. It was covered in dog hair. But so Peggy says she washed my blanket. So next time I'll have a nice dog hair free blanket. But I was so glad to have a blanket from Peggy. So Peggy, thank you. And I told her, I would have used it even if I had known it had dog hair on it. So you guys are learning a lot about me on today's broadcast, right? So, like what in the world, who is this guy? So just be prepared. If you travel with me, if you hang out with me, we're gonna do stuff that I think is normal and even qualify it in the fun category, whereas other people will be mortified. So anyway, I don't know how I got off on that, but there you go. I had a great trip, guys. I was exhausted when I got back. I had so many conversations, really, really good meetings. Met some people and was in some rooms that I hadn't been in before. And to answer Sheck's question, so I'm pulling, by the way, you guys, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I love looking at your questions. But Sheck says here, what is the benefit to working with a hedge fund manager? Okay, so that's a great question. I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's just use something that most people are familiar with, and that is the idea of a flip, okay? So if you're going to do a flip, and let's just say the value of the house after you're done repairing it, the ARV, we call it after repair value, is let's just say it's $500,000. It's in the Portland market, for instance. And if you get this all fixed up, it's worth about $500,000. Let's do some quick math. I just want to know from you all that are watching, what would be a good cash offer price? Let's just assume the property needs about, let's just say the property needs about $70,000 in repairs. And that after those $70,000 in repairs, that it's probably worth about $500,000. Let's, don't worry about all the technical details, but let's just say, what would be a good cash offer price on a house that's worth $500,000 after you fix it up, and that repair estimate's about $70,000. Anybody want to take a guess? $500,000 is our ARV. Okay, Sheck says $280,000. That's a good guess. Let's go ahead and see if anybody else has any other insight here. So I want to give everybody a chance. I'm just doing some math here myself. By the way, this is not there's no right or wrong answer. We're just using this as a test to kind of run some numbers here. So Sheck says $280,000. I would say that's probably a pretty good. If you can get a $500,000 ARV house for $280,000 in the Portland market, I'd say that's probably a deal worth pursuing. Okay, now cheaper would be better, right? And if you're going to follow all of the exact details of ARV times 65% minus the the construction cost minus the wholesale fee. Let's just say that, like the perfect number would be like 200,000, but 280 in the Portland market is not a bad deal. Okay. So let's just say you needed 280,000 to make the cash offer, Sheck. Okay. And then you also knew you're going to need about 70 to do the repairs, right? So you need about 350 in immediate cash to buy it and to do the repairs, right? Now we're pretending like there's no interest and there, all that stuff. There's no realtor fees. We're just using super simple numbers. Typically what you do is you go to a private money lender or more traditionally a hard money lender, someone like, we have several good ones in the PDX REI group. So we have Rain City Capital with Chris Burdick. We have, who's the guy that's down in Albany? He hasn't been, Zach Smith, I believe it is. Zach Smith with Seton Funds. So we have hard money lenders that are in our groups and in our world that we could probably get that cash from. But let's just say we go to them, we said we need 350,000. Well, there's going to be a process. They want to see how many deals you've done. There might be a soft credit pull. But the point is, it could be kind of like a couple of hoops that you have to jump through, right? Well, that would be the way that most people traditionally do a flip, okay? Now, what a fund might look like is something like this. A fund might be like, okay, we know that Sheck is going to do at least 7 flips every year, okay? And so on average, if he needs about 300,000 to 350,000 to get those deals done, then what they might do is they might say, okay, 350,000 times 7 deals in a year. That means Sheck needs about 2.45, let's round it up, say $2.5 million in the fund so that he can go out and constantly buy these types of deals, right? He's always looking and he's got that money available. And so a fund would look like something where the money is pooled up and it's that fund is set up. It has a designated use, right? Sheck can't use that $2.5 million to go out and buy himself a beach house. That would be against the rules of the fund. He can't use the $250,000 to go out and buy a Dairy Queen, right? That he has to use that 2.5 million, would have to be used specifically for specific flips in a very specific area as stated in the fund documentation. Okay, so and what you would do, how would you get that 2.5 million into that fund? Well, this is where you would go out and you do capital raising, right? You'd say, hey, I have the legal entity, I have the documentation in place, I have a fund that I'm going to use to do 7 flips a year in the Portland market. They're going to be in this price range. They're going to have a value of this much when we're done. And in exchange for you investing your capital into my fund, you're going to get a guaranteed interest rate return of 12%, and it's going to be paid out in quarterly dividends with an annual, bonus of, based on the profit margins of maybe another 2% or something like that. It doesn't really matter because you can actually set it up however you want to. Now, the other investors may or may not want to invest in your specific fund based on the type of verbiage and benefits that fund has. But the point is, when you set up a fund like that, well, now you've got the 2.5 million. You're going out and you're looking for those 7 deals. You might find 2 or 3 of those deals in one shot and do all those at the same time. And you have the capital invested into that fund. It's all pooled there and ready to use. And it just makes life a lot easier when it comes to doing, real estate projects. So, Sheck, I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what the benefit is to working with a hedge fund manager. So, in other words, think about if you wanted to start flipping houses, instead of going out and trying to find a deal and then, see if it meets the criteria of a hard money lender and then pay their points and do all these things. If you had a fund you were working with, that fund might be like, hey, Sheck, we'll fund the deal. It just has to fit this criteria. And you go out and do 7 of these a year. We'll make sure that you have the capital ready to deploy for those types of deals. Okay. I'm speaking in very general terms. So, Sheck, I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Sheck says, yeah. Okay. So the benefit, of course, would be that you have the capital pooled up and you just go and you use it, you reuse it, you kind of recycle the money. As soon as one deal gets closed, it goes back into the fund, the profit does, and that money can be used to go pick up another deal. That would be, in a nutshell, kind of how a really super basic description of how a fund, maybe a real estate fund, would work. Now, there's all kinds of different funds, right? So there's funds that all they do is buy bare dirt, right? They buy 50 to 200 acre parcels in, within 100 miles of Atlanta, right? So you have there's funds that all they do is buy land for Starbucks, right? There's funds that buy McDonald's. There's different funds. There's funds that buy businesses. There's funds that do all kinds of different asset classes. But the idea is like Kevin was saying here, put the fun in fund by having the capital and plan in place ahead of the project. Yes. So that is one of the things that I was doing last week or whatever it was now, 2 weeks ago, was meeting with a bunch of hedge fund and private equity managers and more or less finding out what is it that they're looking for, right? And what I learned, among other things, is that there's much more capital out there than most of us realize. In other words, it's hard for us to imagine that the money is just sitting out there looking for a place to go to. But guys, there actually is the money is there. Okay, so the money is there. It is actually looking for places to go. But what I learned about being in that room this last whatever that day was down in Salt Lake City is that that money doesn't go to just any one-off deal. Like they're looking for people that are doing continual projects. They're looking for people that have a track record, or at the very least, they have a team. Like they have an experienced person that covers the financial part. They have an experienced person that runs the business operations part. They have somebody who's really good at the actual construction part. They're looking for teams, and what I've learned is that the fund is your particular fund. If you were going to go set one of these up, your particular fund is only going to get funded. It's only going to be able to draw and attract money as in direct relation to what kind of deals you're bringing, what kind of experience you have, what kind of team you put together. How can you articulate what you're doing? What your numbers are. There's a lot of things that factor into actually having a capital fund or a private equity fund, because obviously these are professional investors for the most part. So most of us have heard of, like I said, hard money lenders, right? The hard money lenders are usually brokers. They're just kind of brokering, putting, capital. They're typically what a private money is. Someone like your aunt or your uncle or your grandma or grandpa or a friend or a boss who has 250, 300, 500,000 to deploy, but they don't really have the time or don't know how to do all the paperwork and stuff. So what they'll do a lot of times is, if you don't come and work directly with them and show them the paperwork and show them how to do this, which, by the way, there's definitely some things you need to be careful regulation wise. I learned this regulation wise that you need to be careful about if you're going to go that way. But let's just say that you decided you were going to do that, and you went and talked to somebody and planted that seed, and they're like, you know what, I like that idea, but I just don't really know if I trust Sheck well enough to really put he's never done a deal before, but I like what he was talking about. What they might do is they might go to a hard money broker, and they might say, hey, my buddy Sheck was telling me about this thing that he's needing money for, but I don't know that he really understands all the stuff yet. I don't know that he's ever done a deal. So I'm going to allow you as a broker to kind of help me know where to put this money, right? And so then, there's going to be more points added on. Why? Because there's now another middleman. So with a fund, you're dealing with not with private money people. You're not dealing with brokers per se. You're not dealing with one-off investors or flippers. You're typically dealing with, absolutely. Andy just posted it here. I believe that's Andy White Rock. Andy said being accredited with most funds. So yeah, you're dealing with accredited investors. These are people that have the ability to prove that they have at least $250,000 in liquid assets. That's not including their primary residence. They have, experience. They understand what they're doing. They know that they're putting this money into something that it has a risk factor in it, that even if they lose their money, it's not going to completely collapse them financially. So there's a big difference when it comes to funds. Guys, I want to just ask you, if you're here watching this right now, I want to see what the feedback is. Why is it that most people don't set up their own fund? I'm just curious. I want to see what your answers are. I'm going to get a drink of water. You guys tell me, why do you think most flippers, most investors, why don't they just go out and set up their own fund, right? It sounds so easy. I just described it. It sounds much better. Wouldn't you agree? Why are most people, investors, flippers, not setting up their own fund? Help me out, guys. Somebody type some answers in the comments here. I want to see what your feedback is. Looking for some feedback, waiting, downloading. Just been talking about the benefits of doing real estate deals through a fund as opposed to the traditional route of private money or even hard money. Um, I'm just curious if you guys know. By the way, one of the other benefits is, think about this: with private money, um, that money is there, yes, and you might even be able to have access to it, but you can only usually do one deal at a time, right? Whereas with a fund, like I said, if we have the target number of 7 deals per year, with the fund, we're able to do multiple deals at the same time, right? Because money's constantly coming in and going out. We're raising capital from other investors. Okay, so Kevin, we got some answers. Why aren't most people doing this? Kevin says lack of knowledge, the initial path, and nobody ever told me I should. Those are all very viable reasons why people don't just move right into working with a fund. Peggy has a great reason here. This is very true. Regulations. There is a particular institution. It's federally. It's a federally backed. It's a federal group. It's called the Security and Exchange Commission. Have you ever heard of that? You guys ever heard of the SEC? The SEC regulates what you can do with capital. Sherry knows a little bit about this. Sherry actually is working in the private money sector. She's working with people that are wanting to invest. She's doing small loans, and she works with different capital raisers. So exactly, the Exchange Commission is very, very big deal, right? You want to make sure that you don't get out of hand with the SEC, the Exchange Commission, because there's so many things that are regulated. Like Sherry says here, folks do not often set up their own fund because navigating the regulatory aspects are not simplistic. Bingo. So Peggy and Sherry win the prize for the best answer today. When it comes to setting up a fund, you guys need to understand that the reason why most people don't do this is because the level of regulations and the different things that you have to navigate in order to set your fund up correctly is to such a degree that most people, unless they are themselves an attorney, or even if they are an attorney, they will oftentimes have another set of attorneys set this up. And I'm just curious if you guys know what the cost is to typically to set up a fund. I'm just curious if you guys know what the costs are. I want to see some price ranges here, because we figured out that there's a way to gauge how much a flip might be worth, right? So you kind of know what to factor in for what to pay. We know how to calculate stuff like what's the cost of the construction, what am I gonna have to pay the realtor to sell this thing, what's the closing cost, right? We know what those costs look like, but what does a fund, setting up a legal fund to do flips, what does that normally cost? I'm just curious if you guys have any guesses, any ideas, because remember, there's attorneys involved, and it's actually a pretty specific verbiage that has to be included. There's some very, very strictly regulated clauses and documentation that are in verbiage and lingo that has to be included. So Kevin Smith is coming in with a pretty broad range, but he's not wrong. $30,000 to $250,000 startup on average. Okay, now that is a big, broad range. I would say if you wanted to get more specific and really kind of narrow that down, it's going to be somewhere between $60,000 to $100,000. Is just, you want to expect you're going to have to pay between $60,000 and $100,000 to set these things up. Okay, guys. So the reason why most people don't do funds right out the gate, especially, is because the cost is prohibitive to everyday people getting involved in doing this. Which is why you end up having professional Wall Street type of folks that are typically the ones that are doing these funds, because there is a high barrier to entry because of the regulations. The regulations mean you have to have attorneys involved. The attorneys that do these types of things they charge a premium, and you want it to be done right. You can't take risk on this because, like Sherry said, SEC is rather strict. That's right. So the cost of doing this is very high. I'm looking at the comments here. Let's see. Andy says, I suggest partnering and chatting with experts like Robert Hart on a few projects, then asking him to advise with advisory shares. So that's true. I don't know if Robert is taking on partners, but if he is, that he'd be a great one to work with. But the point is, when it comes to getting started, setting up and operating through a fund is not, it's not a typical place for most people to start. Just the, bottom line is most people aren't going to be able to put down the capital outlay to set up a fund. By the way, that documentation, all that means is you have a legal set of documents that allows you to go out and start soliciting money in a particular way. So it doesn't mean you actually have a deal. It doesn't mean that you actually made any money. It doesn't mean you're even going to make money. It just means that you now have the documentation in place to be able to do that. So Sherry's right, says definitely not for beginners. Okay, so why are we talking about the day? Because I know most of you guys are either getting started or you have some level of experience, but you're definitely not actually running a full real estate investing business yet. Why even talk about this? Well, the reason I wanted to talk about it today is because I like sharing stuff that I learn. Okay, that's number one. It's Tuesday Talks, right? We got to talk about something. But the reason I'm looking into this at this point in my business, and this point, I'm a decade into real estate investing now. The reason why I'm talking about this on today's broadcast, today's show with you guys, is because I want you guys to understand that there are ways to do things, particularly when it comes to flipping, when it comes to doing the real estate deals that we oftentimes talk about. There's more than one way to do it, okay? So let's take, for instance, you might be looking to get started, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, boy, I would like to do something like that, but I don't have the money to start a fund. But I also don't want to go out and necessarily be flipping houses. Okay, I'm thinking about right now, I just saw her post. Monica says she's driving, she can't text. Okay, but she was able to type that in, so you guys have to forgive her for doing that while she's driving. So we won't expect anything else from her right now. But someone like Monica, who's obviously she's been involved in the real estate space. She's kind of dabbled. She's got a couple of rentals in Arkansas. She's got a really great property in the Portland area, and she's looking at possibly developing. What someone like Monica might do is she might say, okay, I've got a great property and I have a little bit of capital, but I think that my property might be good for future development. And so what she might do is she might go to someone who has a fund and who's already setting something up like that, or is operating like a development fund. And she might say, hey, I'm willing to allow you guys first right of refusal to buy my property. And I'm even willing to chip in some if you show me that it's worth it. I might even be wanting to develop, and I might even be able to chip in some of my own capital. But I want to make sure that I'm a part of the fund and I have a payout available to me at the end of the project. And I also want to get, X amount per month to cover my expenses for my property being tied up. That might be something that someone like Monica might do. And you guys might actually be better off and more beneficial to you, for some of you, to leverage the power of a fund or someone who's operating a fund by bringing your property or by bringing a little bit of your capital into the conversation. They've already got the documentation set up, or they're setting it up, and they might actually have, a particular target that, well, they probably will. They'll have a very specific target type of property that their fund is going to be looking at. And something like that, as like a partnership or even being integrated, it might be beneficial to someone like Monica, where she could go in and say, listen, I'm bringing a property and I'm bringing even a little bit of my capital to this deal. But in exchange, I want, a guaranteed sales price. So whenever it does actually sell and go into development, I get X amount. Plus, I want a part of the profits on the back end, which might take 3 to 5 years, right? Plus, I want a $2,000 a month stipend coming from the fund in exchange for me giving up the rights to my property. So there's all kinds of different things that a person could do if they know of someone who has a fund, or if they know of a particular. Here's another one. If you guys had a really great deal on a potential flip, or you had you found some property, you might be able to go and wholesale that property to someone who's operating a fund. Okay. Why would that be beneficial for you? Well, for one, you're dealing with, remember, a capital pool of money, like a group that has capital and they're looking for properties. Sometimes that group will say, hey, we need to get another deal going right away. So that group will pay more money for a deal today than an average investor would, because they need to deploy that capital to work, right? They're like, hey, we got quarterly dividends coming up. We can't have this money sitting in the fund. It needs to go toward a project. Sometimes working with a fund can actually be more beneficial to you as a wholesaler, because they tend to be willing to pay more money because they're spreading out their returns over several different deals, not just one particular deal. Okay. So there's different ways that you can actually leverage working with a fund. So Sherry says pursuing a fund is an aspirational, inspirational idea. It is. And I would also say working with a fund or a fund manager might be beneficial to you guys if you are coming across good deals in a target area that this particular fund is looking to purchase in. Okay. So that's really what I wanted to just run by you guys today, is, some of the things I learned about being a part of this group that is operating in the fund space. Private equity is, I personally believe, is where a lot of stuff is actually going. Yes, Kevin Smith. Sorry, guys, I got an itch here. It's just driving me crazy. Excuse me there. Kevin Smith says, what about bird dogging for existing funds? Any way to do that? Would it require a Series 7? I don't know that it would require a Series 7. I guess it depends on, are you bird dogging for investors and for capital to come and be added to the fund, or are you bird dogging for the types of deals that the fund is looking for? That would be the answer to that question. So in other words, if you're out there looking to raise capital for an existing fund, then in essence, in theory, and I'll put it this way, legally, I believe there are some very specific licenses and disclosures that you have to be employing in order to actually go out and raise capital, right? And again, it's a little bit varies. Like, is it a Regulation D or is it a Regulation Reg C? There's different ways that these funds are set up to say, hey, can you solicit money from friends and family? Okay, well, then it's going to be, if you're going to be doing that, then it's going to be set up this way. If you're going to be going out and soliciting accredited investors, it's going to be set up a different way. So the answer to your question is, it kind of depends on what you mean by that. If you're bird dogging for capital raising, then in theory, in practice, you need to have this particular series. In reality, what people do sometimes is they actually work around that by working under the canopy of an actual someone who has the Series 7, who has the licensing, who has the disclosures. They work under that person, and they just kind of work kind of like a realtor might have someone who does assistance for them. They work on that realtor's team under the auspices or the canopy of that particular agent. So but if you're talking about finding deals, like finding property for the fund, yeah, like Sherry says, finding properties for the fund should be fine without additional licenses. So I think that hopefully that answers your question, Kevin. Guys, what other questions do you have? We're up at 40 minutes already. It's hard to believe. Time flies when we do this. I hope that these are valuable to you guys. If they are, maybe even right now, just give me a heart, give me a thumbs up. Give me a yes in the comments, because I love getting feedback from you guys. I love the interactions. I know some of you are really good at that. Others of you, I see you're on here, but I don't ever hear from you. So I'm not sure if you're actually listening or if you're just kind of tuning in and I'm just droning on and on, because it sounds like to me, I'm just droning on. So I wish that there was a way we could do this interactively. Probably have to do it through like Zoom meetings or something, but I don't know that we can. I don't know how to do all that live. So, all right. So we got some hearts from Sherry. Peggy's giving us, oh my good, heaven, yes, that's right. And Kevin's got us a finger red number 1. So I think that means yes. So he might have been doing talk to text there. So What else, guys? I think there's some interesting news with the Fed. Obviously, Chairman Powell. A lot of interesting comments and memes about him this last week, indicating there might be a rate drop, but some people are not so sure. Right. One thing that is interesting is Warren Buffett recently just put in, I believe it was $1 billion toward investing in some of the nation's largest home builders. Anybody see that? I think it's Lennar Homes, and I don't think it was Corey Barton. It was another one. I think Lennar Homes and maybe KB Homes. I don't remember, but anyway, there's Lennar and one other one. I invested huge, bought huge shares of those home builders. What do you think that says to you guys? I'm curious what your feedback is. If Warren Buffett, remember Warren Buffett's famous for having his famous quote is run in when everyone else is running out when it comes to investing, and run out when everyone else is running in, right? So Warren Buffett, his moves, especially big moves, are somewhat of a telltale sign. He might be thinking that there's going to be a surge in home building, maybe through maybe through a rate drop or some special programs that are developed to help encourage home builders. Either way, he definitely bought a huge share of $1 billion worth of money that was invested into those two major big home builders. So curious if you guys have any feedback on that or any thoughts on that. Andy says, don't quit these Tuesday talks. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've been trying to get stuff off of my plate. I am seriously looking into Xing so much stuff and just getting off my plate. So as long as I keep hearing feedback from you guys, it would really be encouraging and helpful for me if I would see you guys, if you ever get a really good benefit out of one of these, all you have to do is just share the link, to these broadcasts in your particular, channels, or just drop a link or something. And it actually really does help, because right now we kind of have the same group of people that are on these every Tuesday, and I appreciate you guys, but it also would be helpful if I saw some traction and a little bit of momentum. Peggy says, keep PDX REI group meetups. I think that, boy, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of work. So I'm going to need some help with that. You guys are going to have to help me spread the word on these things, because again, I see the same group of people. I like it when we have organic work. I like it when I don't have to be the one out there just absolutely, pumping these things to do them. You guys know what we do every third Thursday, the PDX REI group meetup. We meet live in person in Beaverton. We have a great time. We've had some great guests come out, and I'm looking to have even better guests coming in. Andy's helping me get some people lined up for future meetups. But again, guys, help me out. Spread the word. Make sure you talk about it. Tag me every now and then. Tag the group. Tag the Tuesday Talks. And if you guys feel like there's something that you can do to contribute to this broadcast on Tuesdays, I love to hear from you. So, all right. So Andy says, yes, I'll get speakers if it helps. It would definitely help. So give me some speakers lined up, Andy. That would be helpful, because not having to come up with all of the content for every one of these, it means a lot. So, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. We're about 45 minutes. I try to keep these somewhat succinct, and try to make sure that our time is well spent here. I want to look back here real quickly. Okay, so Monica says, I'm completely parked right now. Good. Okay. I enjoy Tuesday Talks. I've scheduled it in. Some people are working. That's right, in the middle of projects. Thank you very much, Monica, for that feedback. I appreciate you. It's good to see you at the PDX REI group meetup last Thursday as well. Guys, if you were there for the PDX REI group meetup and you thought it was great hearing from Jordan Wittenberg, maybe tag him in the comments here and let me know if you guys appreciated that. Yeah, Sherry says I could do it remotely if occasionally. Yes, that is true. And I've thought about doing that, Sherry. The reason I haven't gone to remote is because, to me at least, the meetup, that whole idea of doing an actual meetup is, personally, I think the whole benefit of it is by being in person, right? So I've talked about having some other people kind of guest host it. So maybe I could be on a rotation. So far, that hasn't really worked out, but I've thought about having Robert Harden be one of my kind of rotate with him every other month. But he's kind of been doing his own meetup. I'm not sure if he's doing it still, but I know he was doing that through the summer. So him and I have been talking a little bit about that. That would be good. Jordan would be a good one. Yes, that's true. Peggy says Jordan and Robert will support PDX-REI. I believe that. I probably just need to get together with them and see what their thoughts are on that. Yeah, Monica says I've been working on developing the back half of my property. Might not be possible. Yep, that usually does have a big, there's a big question on if it's actually possible or not. Monica says guest host on the east side. Possibly. You have a place where they could host at. Where would that be, Monica? I'm curious if you have a specific place in mind, or you're just thinking like your house or something, because it does make a huge difference, the actual places to meet. There's something I missed here earlier. Okay, yeah, Kevin says, okay, I think is in exchange to Chairman Powell. I think the possibility of 2 minor rate drops by beginning of January is feasible, but I don't see much more. It simply energizes the market. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't necessarily see it being a huge drop either, and I have reasons for believing that. So Happy Valley Library has a space. How big of a space is it, Monica? Because that obviously is a big that can be a big challenge. If we have, we typically have PDX-REI group meetups, we have anywhere from 40 to 60 people. So let me know if that's something that might work. We could talk about that. Yes, Peggy, thank you. Robert is speaking tonight at the Northwest RIA. That's over there, I believe, in Lake Oswego at the Round Table Pizza. You guys definitely get over and hear Robert speak. That's a good networking event. And I believe they're going to be providing pizza there. Joe says, love making calls and hearing you locked it up already. So I am not sure if you're referring to something that I did or said, Joe. So maybe a little clarifications. Closers Cafe meets there too at the Happy Valley Library. Okay, cool. Great. You guys, if you know about this stuff and it's something that you have a link to or an event, please, I don't think everybody understands the power that you guys have in your little fingers when you just go into Facebook and these groups and post these links, right? It's so helpful, right? Because instead of me just being the one person, by the way, if somebody knows about Facebook, I made a post yesterday and I looked today, and I have 3,800 people in my PDX-REI group. And I made a post and I looked at it this morning and it said that I think it was like 5 views. And I don't know what the deal is, but I don't understand why my posts aren't being seen more often. But in any case, if anybody knows how to do that, please let me know, or make sure that gets better exposure. Because I have a group of 3,800 people, and there's like 5, 10, 12 people seeing my post in my own Facebook group. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's a little bit frustrating. So if you guys can, please help me. When you see me post something, go repost it. Or tag other people, because it helps get my post exposure, I think. So Monica, I try not to do that at everyone or at highlight in everything. But I definitely, she says algorithm. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what to do to help the algorithm. I don't know how in the world my algorithm, I reply to people. I think I'm the most active person in the entire group, and I'm still not getting a lot of exposure. So Joe says, I was calling a list, was already told it was locked up by you, and then I see you posted. Uh-oh. I'm wondering which deal it is, Joe. So I'm not sure which it is, because I don't know that I have anything on the books right now. So, okay. Joe, I'd be curious. You can let me know what that is. I'd be happy to work with you on it. Okay. Some Facebook, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here, guys, so I appreciate you here at the end. Facebook post notifications are delayed, sometimes 2 days. Okay. So so Joe, that is a property that I actually own. It's it shows that it's in pre-foreclosure. That's from the people that I bought the property from. If you actually are a serious buyer, I would love to chat with you. I've had a lot of wholesalers in the Portland area. In fact, I've probably had more conversations with wholesalers in the last 2 months than I've had in the last 2 years, because I just don't have a ton of interaction with wholesalers. So I have had several conversations with wholesalers. The problem with the wholesalers is that a lot of wholesalers don't understand creative financing. They don't understand how the benefits. They don't understand how they get paid. And so a lot of them call me. They say they want to buy it, and then I start talking to them, and it's like I can hear their eyes glazing over the phone. So I have something I'm trying to do, not because I have to, but because I want to. I want to try to help either a homeowner get into that house, so it'd be a direct kind of a homestead buyer, or and they could do it. They could get into that house for 150 to 200,000, or I'm looking for like Andy has someone that he's doing work for, a doctor, and that doctor is possibly interested in actually buying this as a rental for himself. So it's a great area, great neighborhood. I've been working. Sherry knows a little bit about this property. I've talked to some of you about it, Kevin. But if you guys bring me somebody who actually has the capital to close on that one, again, I think ideally 150 to 200,000, and someone could have a really, really good deal on a very low interest loan on a property that doesn't need a ton of work. So that, by the way, that 200,000 would include the work that needs to be done. So 150 just to get into it, that recoups my investment, and then helps me catch up the arrears on that one. So I've already got Peggy knows this property. She's been down there twice. She just walked it with me the other day. Joe says, I'm a wholesaler, not a buyer yet. Well, Joe, you probably are working with buyers. So if you have somebody that is a serious buyer in the Portland area, bring him to me. Let's talk. Be more than happy to help you out. Make sure you get paid on that too. So this is the end of the hour, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. I know I was going to tell you one more thing. Yes. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you, whoever reminded me. I have the September micro mentorship that I'm doing in the month of September, obviously. I'm starting that on the first Friday. So the Asset Fusion Forum begins on Friday evening, I believe around 5 o'clock. And I am doing the September micro mentorship, which there's two different things. Okay. So the Asset Fusion Forum is something that Devon Alexander has put together with his team. These guys are bringing the heat. They're bringing the heat to Vancouver waterfront. It's going to be awesome. A 3-day event. Pace Morby's coming. Jameel Dames is going to be there. Developers, builders, a lot of local faces. Jordan Wittenberg, who spoke at the PDX REI Group meetup on Thursday night. A great event. Tickets are normally $500. Okay, so typically, guys, it's $500 to get in that. I am including a free ticket for anybody that signs up for the September micro mentorship. Now, the September micro mentorship is something that I'm doing with a small group of people. The cost is $699, and you're going to get one-on-one sessions with me. You're going to get small group sessions where we're going to be taking, I'm going to be taking everybody in that group through exactly how I found my first on-purpose deal. Most of you guys know I did my first real estate flip accidentally. Won't go into that story, but my first on-purpose deal, I paid $500 for this property. I got it off a very specific list. I turned around, sold it for $40,000. Yes, I did. It was a huge, huge profit margin on that. And so I'm going to be showing people how I did that, the exact steps. And the reason I'm going to show them that is because I'm going to be doing these steps with you guys. So anybody that signs up for that is also going, I think I have like 3 spots left, and I'm going to throw in a free general admission ticket, $500 price point. I'm going to be throwing that in because I'm obviously getting a discount, so I can afford to do that. But I'm trying to make this super valuable. So if you guys are interested in that, say interested in the chat here or DM me directly, and I'll be able to get the information. Door closes on that at the end of this week. So Sunday, October, boy, I am really off on my dates. Sunday, August 31st. Jonathan pointed that out in an earlier post. He's like, I think you mean August. Yes. Sunday, August 31st is the last person I'm letting sign up. I might have that filled by then, but if you guys want to get in on that, and get a free ticket to the Asset Fusion Forum, then drop a comment below, say I'm interested, say me, whatever you want to say, and I will make sure I get the information over to you guys. Okay, I believe that's it for today. Hopefully this is valuable. Hopefully you guys are always glad when you get done with this. I believe in you guys. I want to help you guys any way that I can. I really mean that. I think if we keep working together, we will be able to get to the places that we're trying to get to. And I believe that real estate investing is, at least for me and for many of you guys, it is a very, very reasonable, good way to get going. So let me know what you guys are up to, what you're thinking, but I will talk to you next time, and God bless. See you later.